the Los Angeles City Council, but that was this morning. Transportation Committee. Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl and Mr. Alacone. We are going to begin the meeting. I'm not sure of the attendance of the other two council members. I'd like to actually consent items 1 through 9. 1 through 7 and 9. I do have a question on 8. Are there, let me see if I have any cards. Oops, sorry, I do have one on 9.
No, I heard the news on the radio.
So 1 through 8?
So 1 through, it looks like 1 through 7.
1 through 7. So moved.
Okay. Would you like to second that, Mr. Alacone?
Sure.
Okay, so then let's go to item number 8.
Item number 8 is a CEO report relative to the proposed amendment to the Broxton Lot Group MOU with the Department of General Services to include additional parking facilities.
Good afternoon. Angela Berumen, CAO.
Roxanne Williams, LADOT.
Melody McCormick, General Services Department. The CAO report before you recommends amending the MOU between DOT and GSD to include the operation and maintenance of 3 additional parking facilities to the Broxton Lot Group. This recommended amendment also provides additional compensation of $861,000 in 2007-8, bringing the total annual compensation to about $1.6 million. Funding for this MOU amendment is available and provided through the SPRF.
I have a question in looking at these. Is this unusual that GSD is taking oversight, or are there, how many of our parking locations were GSD?
We currently operate at GSD 35 facilities. Some of them are GSD-controlled sites, such as City Hall East Commercial across the street. There are about 9 of those. We operate about 15 facilities for DOT, Pershing Square Garage, obviously, for recreation and parks, and we also operate 3 facilities on behalf of the library department.
Okay. And are there any impacts to any other SBRF funds for this particular, I guess,
No.
in the CAO, or programs if this,
No.
okay, happens? And is there, I know in some parking lots we have private contractors, some we have GSD. What's the criteria that you utilize for that?
Well, we approached General Services in late 2006 when we determined that the then current operator, Eddington, was going to be out of the parking business, and they pretty much gave us until the end of last fiscal year. So we didn't have time to go out to RFP because we were in the middle of the Hollywood Highland RFP. So we had to divert staff resources to that. So in the meantime, we approached General Services about managing these 8 facilities in the San Fernando Valley, and they agreed to do that. It is the department's desire to go out to RFP, but at present, our division is now down to staff, so we will be looking at workload and deciding realistically how soon we could go out to RFP.
And in some instances, I think, GSD has been a better provider than going out to contract, so.
They've certainly done an excellent job.
Yeah, so I know Alvera Street, I think General Service does that now?
That's correct. That was functionally transferred to us in 2004, and we've made great progress there, including, more than $400,000 increase in revenue. We've got another $400,000 increase slated for this year, and a total of $600,000 in rate increase suggestions that we've made to them. So, and we do not have a problem with anyone going out to bid because we will bid on it as well, and we consider ourselves to be very competitive. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we have a list anywhere that shows here are all the parking lots that the city owns in the city, who operates, kind of which ones? Yeah, I see lots of shaking heads. Okay.
Yeah.
I would love that data or information. So maybe even before we go to council on this item.
We certainly can provide the information for all of DOT's lots. We do have that information in terms of which are operated, which are not operated, and by operated, who are the private operators and the public operators.
Okay.
Our office is also putting together a consolidated list of all city-owned facilities and who it is that maintains those lots and operates those lots.
Okay. That would be great, because I
Yes.
think there's always been an interest in trying to make sure that we're utilizing or getting our best bang for our buck. I know Mr. Rosendahl has talked a lot about the parking fees and how we compare to others, and I know that we sometimes control the market a bit, and if we there is parking policy, as the mayor will tell us, is something that impacts how traffic moves in transportation. But the other last thing is I know there are actually several parking lots that are not utilized up to their full potential, i.e. the Studio City one, I know. And we've been trying to work with DOT to get some marketing, but I think we really need to look at some things outside the box to get people to utilize those facilities, because they were not inexpensive, let's say,
Right.
to buy the land and to build them. And I don't even know if we're making any money or breaking even on the cost of the employees that are working there. So we do need to focus on that. So, okay. Mr.
Yeah,
Rosen.
not about the specifics, but we are talking about the special parking revenue fund, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we were told that we bring in about $21 million yesterday in the Budget Committee.
That's for meters, parking meters throughout the city.
Yes, and that goes into the special parking revenue fund, right?
Correct.
Good morning. Yes.
And it's about 21 million?
21 million is roughly the on-street portion. And all of the off-streets as well goes into the special parking revenue fund.
And what's the off-streets?
That's probably another
We're about 11 to 12 million
11, 12
annually.
million.
What do you mean by off-streets?
Off-streets are all of the lots, the surface lots, as well as the garages that the DOT owns,
So that's roughly then 31 million we take in altogether.
roughly.
I'm doing my math right. From the county, which is in charge of the parking lots in some old historic relationship with the city of LA at Venice Beach. Are you familiar with that?
Some of them, Councilmember, yes.
Do we know what percentage of those fees that are collected at those parking lots the city gets?
I can tell you that annual revenues for our Venice lots, not county, we average about $700,000 to $750,000 a year in gross revenue.
Is what we get.
Right, from our lots, from our operated lots,
More or
yes.
less. Yeah, but they manage them for us, right?
No, we manage those lots through our contract operator parking concepts. There are 3 lots. There are 2 adjoined lots along Venice Boulevard, and then there's the 740 lot off of, I believe, Rose or Main Street.
But the other lots that are literally on the beach, the county,
Yes.
that are city lots, correct?
No, they're not
No.
city lots.
They're county. We have no jurisdiction over those lots.
Right.
No, I thought historically, now this is anecdotal, what do I know? That they were city lots and part of a deal with the county. The county manages the lots, they provide the lifeguards. We have a relationship with those lots that are our lots. It's not their lots.
I'm not aware of that, Councilmember. We can
look
research
into
that.
Just, I know it isn't
Sure,
on
no,
this
it's okay.
issue.
We can research that for you.
We
I'm not
can-
aware of
Could
it.
we have a report back on the Venice lots, both the ones that we manage and the ones that I thought we had a relationship with the county that they managed, and understand the fees and the rates? You might have heard me yesterday. I think we have gold in the gutter out there, be it parking or parking lots, that can help us as we go forward with our city budgets going forward. And the more information and understanding, the better off we'll all be. So I'd like
And we were going to report back on the motion that you had that specifically had that request, so we're working on that, and we'll add the any information we have on county lots as well for you.
fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think you should title the report "Gold in the Gutter," because that's a good thing. It was good. It's
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
Mr. Alcon, do you have any questions on this one? Okay. If not, we'll move item number 8. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item?
Item number 9 is the Board of Transportation Commissioners report relative to the application of Brea Canyon Oil Company for a pipeline franchise.
Yes, Richard Jones?
Hello. Thank you for hearing me today. I own a property at 1472 Oakhorn, and Brea Canyon Oil ships their oil along a pipeline that's located on the surface of the property through the last 20 feet of my property. Their right to do that expired in 2002 under a right-of-way agreement that's been recorded. I would like the council to consider, before you approve this item, that the pipeline franchises that you'll be giving to the oil company will be assisting them to effectively trespass on my property and other people's property. Maybe before you vote on this item, you would like to ask your staff to go back and consider perhaps ask the oil company to provide any evidence that they have a right to maintain a use on my property.
Sounds like a reasonable request on that. Do you want to comment at all? No.
No.
No. Okay. I'm sorry, are you from the department?
No.
Okay.
My name is John Malloy. I'm a retired city employee.
Okay,
and
I
I've
saw
been
the
working with
badge. I
guys-
saw your badge, sorry, so I thought
Thanks
that
to
was
the
this.
retirement system, we don't have to go through the electronic system.
Ah, okay, all right.
So
okay. All right.
I'm working for Mr. Jones.
Okay. Great, do you have anything to add? Because he didn't use his full 2 minutes, so we'll let.
One of the things, I think that we sent you a letter, and part of the letter indicated that we are concerned under Section 2.3 A and B of the pipeline franchise agreement. It allows them to add additional areas. And the surface pipeline that Mr. Jones talked about is serviced by a pipeline that comes from Woodbury down Halldale and eventually goes across his property. And we're really concerned that we are in a lawsuit with Bray Cannon Oil, and we don't want them to get any legitimacy to that pipeline that expired in the city streets in 2002 to work against us in our lawsuit to pick them off the southerly 20 feet of Mr. Jones's property.
All right, well, thank you. I think I'm going to ask the department to come up, but I'm going to ask the department to come up, DOT staff.
Councilmember, our staff's en route. There was a
Okay.
issue with transportation to getting to this commission meeting, so they have all the information. I don't have the information, so I wouldn't be able to really answer some of the specific questions you may have. Is there any way that this item could be put on table?
Yeah, we can table it until the
Okay.
staff gets here, and maybe there's an opportunity for you all to have a conversation even before you
Sure.
come up to the table and
Definitely do that.
have some resolution.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Item number 10, before we have the staff presentation, you can come up, Jay, come on. Mr. Sachs? You have several cards today. Yes.
Item number 10 is a DOT report in response to a Grossmith Parks Garcetti motion relative to directing DOT to meet with Caltrans and MTA and report back on the feasibility of implementing hot lanes and/or existing carpool lanes on freeways.
Madam Chairman, can I wait? Chairwoman, can I wait for the report?
Sure.
Thank you.
Jay?
Good afternoon, Jay Kim from DOT. This is a status report on the region's collective efforts to create high occupancy toll lanes on Southland freeways. On November 13, 2007, U.S. DOT announced a grant opportunity to create congestion pricing on the carpool lanes on the freeways. And so subsequently, we worked with Caltrans and Metro to develop high occupancy toll lane projects on several Southland freeways. The one that pertains to the city of LA, there were actually 4 candidate locations, but the one that actually pertains to the city of LA would be the one along the 110 freeway corridor that runs through the South LA area. And basically, as you recall, we came to this committee and we developed a kind of a complementary city components that could be kind of tacked onto the main piece of the high occupancy toll lane project on the 110 freeway. And so in that report, we basically described a number of packages that went along to improve transit technology and parking technology improvements and other things that would be complementary to the project so that it could be tacked on to the main, the Metro application submittal. And so the deadline was December 31st, 2007, and Metro, taking the lead, did submit a complete package to US DOT. The total package was in the order of 1.43 billion, I'm sorry, that's with the B, and the federal funding request was 648 million, of which about $35 million, if approved, would come back to the city of LA for sort of our project components. It's our understanding that US DOT will make the announcement sometime in March / maybe April. I think the report actually says February, March, but it's been slightly delayed. But we do anticipate some kind of response in the next month or so. And then the other thing would be right out those the freeway segments that have been identified. They're not authorized by the California Transportation Commission as identified toll roads. So legislatively, those would have to be changed so that you could create the authority from a state level to allow those freeway to operate as toll lane freeways. And so that work is being sort of spearheaded by both Caltrans and Metro. And so we will hear more from them once they make some progress on that. So that's, in a nutshell, we're kind of waiting. And
do we anticipate that we're going to hear in March or April? Is that the
yes
timeline? Okay. And should the application be successful, what other hurdles do we have to get over to make that happen?
Well, again, we do need the concurrence from the California Transportation Commission to allow Caltrans to create toll lane facilities on the freeways. That's hurdle number one. And after that, it's really, there's some other issues about if we do generate the toll revenues, and I think that some discussions would have to take place about, how does that revenue get expended, and if there are any leftover revenues, how should those funds be expended to sort of take care of other components like improving public transit along the same corridor. So again, I don't think we've had a full discussion on that subject matter, but I think as a region, we need to sort of answer those questions about what to do with the revenue expenditure once we, if we were to get selected for this process.
And if we're not selected, are some of the projects that we've outlined included in the long-range plan for SCAG and for MTA and?
At this point, they're not, but I think we are working towards making sure that it does. And obviously, some of the freeway toll lane projects would also have to be reflected on the LRTP and the RTP if it's going to be eligible for state and federal funding. And so we do have another opportunity to comment on the LRTP. So we will do that, and we'll try to make sure that all of the components that are relevant in our report, those do make it on that report.
Okay. Great. Okay. Colleagues, you have any questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Item number 10, right?
Yeah, item 10.
Okay, yeah, I did notice in the summary that the department reports that U.S. DOT executives in a meeting with the county congressional delegation, U.S. DOT and Federal Transit Administration, the U.S. DOT executives indicated that Los Angeles Region's application is being carefully reviewed and that the administration would be interested in showcasing the potential of congestion pricing in Los Angeles. It's sort of indicating to me that there might be some money down the end of that road, but I find it curious that happened in January, and the report that came out yesterday suggesting that congestion pricing should not be the priority. I'm just wondering, am I talking apples and oranges here?
Yeah, a little. The one that was discussed is the one at the airport.
At the airport, right.
Separate item.
That's the next one.
No, I understand that, but if in fact the U.S. DOT was looking at showcasing congestion pricing, it just doesn't square with the other report.
Well, this one is for the 110 and the, what other freeways? I'm trying to remember.
110, the 10, the 60, and the 210.
But this comment is specific to those?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It really pertains to the combined application package that Metro took the lead as a regional transportation authority, and it's really talking about that package submittal. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're trying to tie it to the LAX congestion pricing.
Okay, but this
report.
is not a general statement from USDOT that they encourage congestion pricing?
No, their review is based on that official submittal by the metro agency on those 4 particular freeway segments.
Okay,
And
cool.
I think this may have been before you were on the committee too, but Metro applied before, and we lost, and there was a big article in the Times about that. We did not,
Right.
weren't effective in going that next level. Other cities were, and so I think
I believe.
we took the big leap to go on to congestion pricing, so. Okay. Mr. Rosendahl, before you
Yeah,
go to Mr.
could
Sacks.
MTA come on up for a second? Metro? Hi. I'm just curious, why'd you pick those 4 lanes, 4 routes over others? Just
We were looking for existing infrastructure that could be easily
flipped.
converted, if you will. And that was especially the appeal, well, first of all, for the record, Arthur Henry, Metro Government Relations. And that was especially the appeal of the Harbor Freeway, because the Harbor Freeway has the 2 HOV lanes in each direction. So that was an attractive. And then the corridor was because of then having a parallel corridor flow with the 10 and the 60 and the 210.
And what would this mean to a carpool person? They could still do it for free, or would they have to pay as well?
Well, that's still being looked at in terms of what that would be. It would depend on the number of people, for example, in the carpool. There might be one rate for 3 in a vehicle. Those are some of the dynamics that would still be worked out, as opposed to perhaps 2 in a vehicle. So that's some of the dynamics that would still be worked out that really hasn't been, to my understanding, resolved yet.
So the first would be a one-person vehicle, right? Would pay whatever the price would be for the one-person vehicle.
Yes.
And then it would be a flexibility or a different scale if it's 2 or 3, to incent people to
Potentially,
be
yes.
2 or 3. Yeah, I mean, my hope is when we take this to the next level and deal with the feds on it, that those that are carpooling, be it 3 or 2, are obviously not the same price as a one-person car, because then it is all about money.
Yes, yes.
And the idea of a carpool lane was 2 people or more. Some countries, as you might know, have what they call odd and even license plates.
Yes.
So half the cars are gone from the road.
Yes.
And people have to be 2 people in a car, or they have to be the odd or even number. I'm not suggesting that here, but certainly the carpool lane that works for people in a carpool should not cost them additional money if you're going to have a single person. I just want to throw that out as a point.
And we do have, of course, one HOV lane that currently is 3
Yeah.
carpool, the 10 El Monte.
Right.
Freeway is 10, it's 3 during peak period hours.
Right, yeah. Okay, thanks.
I know, I drove down there one day. I was so proud I was in the carpool lane. The highway patrol looked at me and
How
went,
can we put the 405 in this, by the way?
because I'll answer that, because it has to be those that have some capacity left. 405 is as crowded as almost the next, on the
Well-
carpool lane as it is, right? Isn't there am I?
Yes, I think that was one of the main criteria, was to look at those carpool lanes that actually had some
Some
excess capacity, or you can create some excess capacity through pricing it properly. And I think the consensus was, like the Harbor Transit Way, that had a lot more capacity to begin with. It's 2 lanes, and you can do a lot more to even create some excess capacity. So I think it was
luck.
that kind of reasoning that was used.
Last question is, Northern California, they let you get in and off of the carpool lanes. They don't have this way we have it here. I know we've been studying that. Any sense of where that's heading for us? Flexibility on that?
Yeah, I don't have the latest thinking, by Caltrans on that one. I know they're looking at it, but I don't
Yeah.
think,
I'd love a report back on that, because when you go to Northern California, they got it together much more
Okay.
than we do.
Great. So actually, this item is a note and file, I believe. So, but before that, Mr. Sachs?
Yeah, thank you for letting me listen to the report. Just a few things. I believe it was mentioned $1.43 billion. Is that the cost for all the carpooling in all the 4 of the freeways, or is just the cost for the 110 freeway to convert that to carpooling?
it's for the entire
So
4
it'd be for the entire
freeway
4.
segments.
The money coming back from the federal government would be $650 million, leaves a difference of like $800 million for the funding to come up. Next level, I think, should be with the state before you go to the feds, because if you get all this stuff done and the state hasn't passed the bill, the legislation, then you're stuck back at square one waiting for the state to move to enable you to do the work that the federal government says you can. And it's always a third party. You're chasing your own tail all the time. So who's moving for the state to move to turn this carpooling scenario into reality sometime down the highway sooner than later? If you don't go with the carpooling, do something else. Will it affect federal funding for other requests for funding for other projects in the city of LA, in the county?
I think just two answers. One is that, not receiving the grant won't impact our ability to apply for other funds or to access them. And two, on the state level, I know that we've already had some discussions with the California Transportation Commission, so that if and when, hopefully, we receive this, that we will have not lost a whole lot of time. So,
thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll note and file that item. I know Carolyn Flowers is here on item 13. If we could skip to 13, because I know she has a conflict.
Item 13 is a Grove Parks motion relative to directing DOT and request Metro to report on the proposed bus service changes for June 2008.
And please have a seat. I think what we decided with this DOT on that item number 9 is continue it for a month.
Okay.
They are not able to resolve the issue right now.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. Sure. Oh, yes, you go ahead. Please, go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Good
I'm Carolyn Flowers, Chief Operations Officer for Bus Operations at Metro, and with me are Ed Muncie, who is the Director of Service Planning and Performance Analysis, and John Hilmer, who is the Service Development Manager for the San Gabriel bus sector. In response to the motion from the Transportation Committee concerning Metro's service planning shakeup in June of 2008, I wanted to just give you some summary remarks and then open it up for questions regarding the service changes. Metro has made some significant improvements to bus operations over the past decade. However, we, like many other public agencies right now, are faced with revenue shortfalls and limited resources, so we're trying to manage our resources within the limitations and parameters that we have. We have some hallmarks that we have achieved over this past 10 years. We have put in newer and more buses. We've gone to higher capacity vehicles. We've introduced a new rapid service, and as part of our June service plan implementation, we will finalize at least Metro's share of that rapid service implementation plan, and we will have 25 rapid lines operating in the Los Angeles region at that time. And we also have introduced the Orange Line bus rapid transit out in the San Fernando Valley. We have reviewed, and we, on a biannual basis, we review our service, and despite efforts, our operating costs are continuing to increase. Fuel, operating shortfalls from the state have impacted us adversely over this period. And funding is, tight due to the changing economy, and as I said, the state budget. We're facing an operating deficit of over $1 billion in the next 10 years, and we're trying to address that. Recent fare increases have helped, but they're not enough. Right now, I believe that our fare box recovery is about 27% of our operating costs. We operate over 7
$1 million per year, or $1 million over?
$1 billion over the next.
Billion.
$1 billion
10 years.
over 10 years. Over 10 years. Yeah, billion.
A B.
Yeah. And we're operating over 7.8 million annual bus service hours on an annual basis. The service change is to look at reductions and eliminations of unproductive lines, and we're proposing to replace 160,000 revenue service hours from low productivity lines with 6 new rapid lines. And the rapid lines are also part of our consent decree, so that is one of the factors that is also a challenge for us at this time. And we're also proposing to do trip thinning to high-frequency periods, which will save an additional 215,000 annual service hours, and there will be no more than a 3-minute increase in service frequency. Our next steps in regards to our service change is that we have held public hearings, and staff is now reviewing public comments and finalizing recommendations. And once that is done, Metro notifies the stakeholders of the staff recommendations. And then the governance councils, there's 5 bus sectors in the city that have governance councils. And then the governance councils are scheduled to act on those recommended changes in March 2008. And then the board of directors for Metro are scheduled to act on our Tier 1, which is the regional lines, the rapid lines, and Tier 1 regional rapid, if I missed anything. They act on that, recommended changes in April 2008. And then after that, Metro notifies the stakeholders and customers of the board and council approvals of service changes. And then in June, on June 29th, we implement the service changes based on the approvals that we receive.
And, sorry, did you have anything else you want to add? Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the Metro Connections group, is that separate than the sectors that you have?
No, Metro Connections is part of our central service planning, and this service change is not a service change that's predicated on any realignment or reallocation of service for Metro Connections. This service change is looking at implementing our rapid service plan as part of the consent decree.
And how does the rapid bus changes impact those that are kind of daily riders? I mean, I guess that's part of what you're going to come out with, is explain for those individuals that are transit dependent who are riding those other buses, who may or may not be able to utilize the rapid reds.
Well, on whole, the projection is that we're going to have a 1% increase in seat capacity with this service change. With the rapid implementation, there will be 6 new lines that will be in the region. And Metro is probably moving away from the role of a community circulator more to the regional operator role of the Tier 1 lines. And so that's basically what we're looking at in terms of implementing the June shakeup.
And who picks up that, if you move to the commuter versus the...
In some cases, there are lines that there are other options for the commuters, and in some cases, unfortunately, there may not be options that will probably be in a quarter of a mile, or in some cases, maybe a half a mile. So we're looking at providing options where we can based on the resources that we have.
Because I think for seniors and others who, may use that public transportation to get down to the corner market, which is a mile away.
As part of the public hearing process, we're actually getting that kind of input from the community, our stakeholders, as to the adverse impacts of some of the changes. And as part of the public comment, that'll go back to the sectors for review in the decisions that they make in terms of the recommendations that'll go to our board.
And last question before I have it. So if I heard you correctly, you said March was when it was going to go to the board, or March is when you come out with your recommendations?
March is when it goes to the sector governance councils for the decisions on the final recommendations for service changes.
Okay. And when will the final recommendations, or the recommendations be coming out?
That would be April 2008.
No.
Okay. We're still in...
Any recommendations?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's what I was
First
getting.
one.
Where's the first
Are there
recommendation?
any recommendations
Right now? No.
And when would the first ones be coming out?
The first recommendations will be coming out in the beginning of March.
Okay. Because my only concern, you were going the direction of, it's a very short period of time in which to get public input, because I think we may want, similarly, those of us that may be impacted our districts to be able to have input in the public.
We've had public hearings. The process has been going on since the beginning of February. And so in some cases, we do have some input from some of the members of your committee.
Yeah.
Specifically, I know Councilman Labange.
Yeah.
Yay, Tommy.
Thank you very much. Well, thank
Councilman
you.
Labange has spoken to us, and but we have not closed the public input process yet. And
Because some of it, we may not know what the recommended changes may be until it's published or you're providing it. I mean, we have some idea because of conversations, but I think.
Yeah,
that
right now, the only information that we have is what we put out there as proposals from our service planning group, and we can provide those, and I think we can give them to Maria
that would be
or
great.
specifically to your offices so that you can see what is being proposed. And then as soon as we get a response back from our governance councils, we can get that information to your offices immediately.
I think that would be helpful, and maybe, Maria, to make sure that we send it to all 15 council members, so that they're, even though they're not on this committee, that they'll understand some of the proposed changes, and so we're not waiting until then. I think that, if there can be input along the way. So, Mr. Alarcon, did you?
Aren't some of the commuter lines feeders to the rapid lines?
No.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Aren't they
Some of the
feeders
commuters.
to the rapid lines?
Yes, some of them are.
So if you cut the commuter lines that are feeders to the rapid lines, wouldn't the ridership on the rapid lines drop?
Well, the reason why the rapid lines is we're trying to increase the speed of the system. And the speed of the system is something that actually impacts ridership. And there's still a significant network of buses out there and lines out there that still will feed those rapid lines. There is some thinning, as we said, in the system, and some reductions of eliminations, specifically targeting duplicative services and looking at where MTA's resources can be used most efficiently. The proposals that we're making do increase. We're projecting still an increase, a 1% increase in ridership, and also we're looking at, increasing our seat capacity over what we are right now.
I would be particularly interested in any commuter lines that are cut that intersect with the rapid lines.
We can provide that information to you.
Because I'm hearing two arguments here. You're striving for efficiency, but you're also trying to comply with a consent decree, and sometimes the two don't make a good mix in terms of decisions. Particularly if you're trying to drive up ridership on the rapid lines at the expense of people having access to the rapid lines, it doesn't make sense to me.
It is a conundrum, and it's something that we're trying to respond to, because we have to respond to the consent decree, and then we have to also look at balancing our resources at the same time, too.
Well, I'm supportive of the consent decree, but it seems to me that if it has a negative impact on the rapid lines, ultimately, where commuters' access to the rapid lines is reduced, then it seems to me that rather there should be a separate strategy to go back to court.
I'll pick that up with our board.
The board member sitting next to Mr. Alarcon, he can.
Why don't you explain it? Isn't that part of the
Yes.
consent decree they held on to?
Yes.
Rapid test. Everything else was removed.
We have two things that we have to respond to as part of the completion of the consent decree. It was the implementation of the new service plan. The new service plan is the implementation of the rapid lines. And the other one is maintaining seat capacity And as I indicated, the seat capacity would be increasing by 1% to 94,068 seats at peak. And we're doing that through the implementation of high-capacity vehicles. So this service change
My
is...
problem is that I don't have enough rapid lines.
Neither do I.
And the Northeast San Fernando Valley is ill-served, notwithstanding the fact that when I was in the legislature, I marshaled $90 million to create a rapid line on the San Fernando Road corridor. That money has now shifted over to Chatsworth. So...
Is this part of the TCRP?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I don't trust you guys. And not to mention the fact I used to serve on your board, I really don't trust you guys. You've diminished the quality of our bus service and to bank on, you shifted the resources from the bus service into the subways in such a way that it's really diminished access to jobs and in my community, it's you're not taking advantage of existing passageways. The San Fernando Road corridor is a very busy commuter line for the bus service, and yet it's not fully utilized.
San Fernando Road, we are implementing a rapid on it in June 2008.
In June?
Mm-hmm.
I love the plan you've come up with. Well, I would like to meet with you to get more detail on that, or whoever is in charge of implementing that, because what I actually wanted to talk about extending it all the way to Santa Clarita, to tell you the truth, but that's a whole different issue. But I'm still concerned about the elimination of commuter lines that are supposed to feed into the rapid lines, and I guess I need to learn more about the consent decree.
Okay. We will be glad to set up a meeting with you, and hopefully we will be able to explain the strategy that we're doing, and also about the revenue shifts that have come about in the agency, not specifically in operations. I'm not trying to make an excuse for the agency, but operations is generally the place where the shortfall is in the agency. It's in the enterprise fund, and so we have to look at how we can take those resources that are put in the enterprise fund and use them effectively.
Mr. Parks.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Parks, Mr. LeBon?
Hey, thank you. Good afternoon. I apologize for being late. Ms. Flowers, good to see you. Just want to let you know, members, there is a proposal for the Carolyn Flowers Station on the Red Line subway at 4th in Santa Fe, which will extend to the Art District, and we're trying to get that done. She came up with the idea. She looked from her window, and Mr. Cato, Mr. Snowball, and others all agree we should do it, so I just lobby Mr. Parks there as a voting member here. And I got to ask you a tough question. Now, you went to UCLA, right?
That's correct, sir.
And you went to Dorsey High?
That's correct.
It's like Dorsey Don. Now, if you got a bunch of petitions from Dorsey, you have to weigh those heavy. Now, I got a bunch of petitions from John Marshall. I'm weighing them heavy about line 175. And I got to figure it out. And I don't know how to do it. And the only thing I would like to ask you on that is if you did connect, and I remember my short time, but it was an effective time when I was over at the MTA board, to connect portals. If you went from Sunset and Vermont, where the Red Line subway station is, up Talmadge by the high school, over to the Glendale Transit Center, you're connecting these what we call transit centers. So if we could look at that in some extent, and if it doesn't work for you, we got to make it work for the children, because I don't know how we leave. I think 700 children take the 175. Does the committee know about school trippers at all? You familiar? You know what a school tripper is?
I don't.
Okay. Why don't you just take a minute?
Than when I went to high school.
That's right there. That's a Poly High graduate for you right there. Okay. Just explain to us.
In regards to your line 175, we're trying to get a meeting with LAUSD. And a school tripper is basically a service that is specifically put out there on a daily basis to take the kids when they get out of school, or take them to school, basically. But the issue is that from the federal side, your funding is based on opening your service to all of the public. And when you specifically run service that is for schools, we're out of compliance because it's generally to serve all of the public. When you're just serving the school, that should be school bus service or charter service. And as a recipient of federal funds, a public transportation agency is not allowed to do that. And so we're looking at specific school tripper service, and we're trying to work with LAUSD to see if they can assist us in trying to cover those students as they go in.
I don't think they want to, so I think we should probably talk to our congressional delegation to see how we could help the MTA try to figure that guideline there. But we'll work on that issue there, and maybe a change in route where you connect to important portals would do that. But we'll continue on that, but I understand the dilemma that you're in. The 720 is your most popular rapid bus, is that correct?
Wilshire Boulevard is our highest ridership line.
And the 775 is Western Avenue, is that right? 755? Yeah, and that's second, or Western or Vermont?
Vermont.
Vermont, so right there. So these are important bus lines. The one of the 720, just the only question I ask, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Ed Muncie.
Hey, Ed, how are you? And
John Hill.
I know John. So John's Fairfax, and Ed is La Brea. And Carolyn, you're Hauser. And at Hauser's, there's 10,000 people live in Park La Brea, 1 block away, but there's no stop between Ed and John, right? Is that fair? La Brea and Fairfax. So could you see if you could have a stop? Because we're all talking about density, and I know Mr. Park's old high school was right there near Park La Brea when he was a young man. He's still a young man. I'm sorry, Bernard. There, still a young man. But if there could be a stop at Hauser, I'm just saying, we're crazy. We have all this density, yet the people who ride the 720 say they can't stop there. And lastly, the 81 bus goes from Colorado and Figueroa all the way to the Artesia Transit Center. And I just think if you wanted to increase service between the northeast of Los Angeles, if you hubbed it into downtown somehow and had it, broke them in two a little so you don't have these long rides. I had an occasion the other day to ride the 720, and I talked to the operator, and I asked her what her fastest time was from Commerce. It's not Commerce. It originates in Commerce, the 720, or in...
There's 3 trunks to that line.
Yeah. What's the longest trunk?
Montebello.
Montebello to Santa Monica. She said hour and 50 minutes is what it was. And I just, would just say is, in your thinking, because I remember when I was there was this thought there would be a hub and a spoke, and you would go out from, and I don't know if you're going to get to that point. I know you have other things that impede you, but I think, John, we talked about that in our meeting in the office, Carolyn, we talked about, and John Cato, who left us to go to Washington, talked about that a lot. Is anything new on the hub and spoke?
That has not died. That's a part of the Metro Connections concept.
Okay.
We hope to look at some downtown restructuring and other facets of Metro Connections as we move forward in future service changes.
Good. Okay. So we'll talk to you, and we want to support you. But if you look at Hauser, that would be great to connect to 10,000 people, because I think they walk right out of Park La Brea and they get right on the bus. They stop at Crenshaw. The mayor gets on the bus, get off there, Western, take the subway down. No one's laughing, so I'll be quiet.
We will definitely investigate a stop at Hauser and take that under consideration and get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Rosendahl?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
Can you talk about the Venice Rapid Red?
Several things real quickly.
No, it's okay. Venice Rapid Red, if you haven't heard.
Yes, so.
She knows that. It's the shout out of the century for old kid here, okay? A couple of 3 things. One, is it possible to make a presentation before my Empowerment Congress's Transportation Committee? I have a vibrant group of citizens that would like very much to understand what you're doing. I saw that there was one in Beverly Hills, West LA, but it's a different story for my people. And so I want like a commitment that we could see exactly what you're talking about and what they're doing. We have 3 or 4 main leaders who have spent a lot of time on transportation issues. We have a committee of 22 people.
Who should we coordinate with?
With Greg Asher, who you just saw behind me in the back there.
Okay.
Who can coordinate with that? That's story 1. Story 2, is, as you well know, that I have gridlock north, south, east, west. Thanks to Santa Monica, aggressive job capital on the west side, the people from the South Bay clog all my streets, people from the Valley, people from East LA, and so on and so forth. The one from the South Bay is a big deal to me. And I'd like to get a better understanding of the rapid bus strategies from, say, the Galleria in Redondo that literally could conceivably exist. Because as you know, I have from Lincoln Boulevard to 23rd Street in Wallgrove, to Centinela Bundy, to Barrington, and to Sepulveda. Everybody coming that don't get on the 405. And they've learned, everybody has learned
Sure.
to drip around and find a way to make it because the 405 is just hell. Do you have any rapid bus plans from the South Bay that could go into Santa Monica?
Well, the original rapid implementation plan and our long-range transportation plan was put together in the 90s, and it had a total of 28 lines. 25 of them, as I indicated, would be implemented by June, but there are 3 lines that are still to be implemented by municipal operators, and they're all in your area. One is going to be on Sepulveda, operated by Culver City. Another one will be operated by Santa Monica, that's coming out to Pico Rimpau, down Pico. And a third one will be operated by Torrance Transit, that's coming, I think, come from, yeah, up to Long Beach?
From Long Beach up to the airport.
Okay, from Long Beach to the airport. And so when we complete that rapid plan, which will be a total of 28 lines, we can look in the future about changes that we can make and add an additional lines that we can look at. I understand that you have an interest on Venice Boulevard, which is a high potential corridor, and some other corridors out there that we would like to look at too. But, initially our resources are only available to implement the plan that we have thus far.
No, I understand that. And of course, the key word was in the 90s. It's dramatically changed.
Yes.
My district is the most gridlocked district, and it is north, south, east, west. And just what you described with Culver City and Sepulveda doesn't solve my problem. The blue bus from Santa Monica going up Pico doesn't solve my problem. And obviously, the last one you mentioned doesn't solve it either. So there's nothing except a parking lot on Lincoln and Centinela from about 7:30 in the morning to about 9:30, and then again around 4:30 or 4 o'clock until 7. My constituents, frankly, it can take them an hour to go one part of the district to the other, or even get out of Brentwood to just get to somewhere. It's really a disaster zone. So I don't want to wait much longer. And one of the things we would love to look at is where we as MTA deal with the whole county. Look at that north-south congested corridor. I do want my green line out of Mothballs into the airport, down Galleria and up Lincoln, but that's going to take a little longer than buses. I think buses are our short-term major improvement strategy, and we should be spending a lot more money and energy on buses and bus lanes. I'm also big on the Wilshire bus-only lane.
Yes, mobility for buses
I'm telling you, the subway to the sea, great, but the bus lanes can be done lickety-split. We can get them going. We can get even the feds want to support us with a bus-only lane on Wilshire Boulevard. We do have a calendared here for later in March to discuss it here, but please, I'd like us to think about that. Obviously, selfishly speaking, I want one on Venice. I want to walk out of my house, go down to the corner of Centinela and Venice, and get on a rapid and come down to City Hall rather than a milk route every 2 or 3.
Well, we agree with you. Mobility and speed are key
Yeah.
to attracting ridership, and if we're going to put additional buses out there, we have to have the infrastructure to move them.
No question about it. Thank you for your leadership. We look forward to my district getting a real insight. When we call our Transportation Empowerment Congress together, I'm also going to bring the 8 neighborhood councils, and we'll have a nice, robust meeting as to how do we look at the future when it comes to the great buses. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. One last question, Mr. LaBonge, before we hear
Ms.
from...
Flowers, you're too young to remember, but there was a thing called Freeway Flyers. Are there any Freeway Flyers anymore with the MTA?
Yes.
There are?
Our express buses on the freeways. Our
For the
busway.
El Monte Busway only?
El Monte Busway, Harbor Transit Way.
Harbor Transit Way?
On the Santa Monica Freeway.
Santa Monica Freeway? You use Santa Monica Freeway?
439.
And LA Dot is running commuter service also.
Okay, good. Hollywood Freeway has the bus turnouts at Alvarado, Vermont, Western, so think about that too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We do have two speaker cards, Sun Yun Yang and Arnold Sachs.
Do we need to respond to this?
Good afternoon, Transportation Committee. I would first like to thank Chair Gruhl and the rest of the Transportation Committee's leadership on providing this motion to get a more thorough report on the proposed bus service cuts. As we've written to the committee, that MTA is planning to cut about a total of 375,000 hours of bus service by the end of June this year. And combined with the 90,000 hours of bus service that they've eliminated last year, it totals about 50% of what the bus riders union have won through the civil rights consent decree. And so I would just like to say that MTA staff has to be a little bit more honest about the detailed statutes of the consent decree and what this service cut means. It is mainly a budgetary-driven cut. I want to first clarify that the rapid expansion is actually supposed to be implemented as an expansion and not as a replacement of local service. So it's erroneous to say that because MTA is implementing all these new rapid service that they have to get rid of some of the local services that are vital, both not only to feed into the rapid lines, but as well to be able to provide mobility for many elders who cannot walk too far. If the Transportation Committee, if you would like, we could send you the specific ruling of the service expansion consent decree ruling that has the specific statutes of how rapid should be implemented. Secondly, many of the questions that this committee has asked the MTA today has not been sufficiently answered. The MTA staff hasn't provided a specific analysis of all the impacts and how these cuts will be impacting many riders who would have to suffer through multiple transfers, long walks, and additional costs. So there's a motion that Yvonne Burke is going to be putting tomorrow on serving the magnitude and impact of these service cuts, and I would like to urge the Transportation Committee and both Councilmember Parks, who's on the board, to also urge the MTA board to not make a decision until there is a thorough review of all the impacts of what these service cuts will bring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sachs?
Thank you, Arnold Sachs. Very quickly, on the consent decree, I believe MTA spent $1 billion fighting the consent decree that was ordered by the judge. So when they talk about a deficit, there's $1 billion that was spent, and they ended up losing. More buses, more rapid service buses more rapid buses does not necessarily translate into more and better service. It just translates into more buses. One of the problems that MTA has, low service lines, they want to cut low service lines, but very often you'll see rapid buses in outlying areas with nobody on them. So how long will they allow rapid bus lines with low ridership to run based on their experience with local lines that have low ridership, which actually will pick up ridership because the areas that used to be served by local lines are going through transition periods, and a lot of them being redeveloped, which is one of the reasons when you had the density program, the housing density that was before City Council was based on the fact that they want to include rapid lines as a basis for housing density because they know where the rapid lines are going to go. You want a rapid line? Have some property that's going to be redeveloped. The cost of ethanol fuel that the MTA is using versus regular fuel, how is that increasing? We want to know where the money is coming in, where the money is being spent. We want every penny that we can get a hold of, but nobody really knows where the money is being spent and what's being spent on. Budget shortfall, we've talked about the Expo line, how the price went up 125%, yet the East Side Extension hasn't increased because of what? The cost, the way the thing was costed out. And the school tripper service, I believe Westchester High School had their bus signs cut because I went to the South Bay Governance Council meeting when they cut it. And one other thing, if you don't mind, the Grievance Council, the South Bay Governance Council meeting, their definitions of duplicate service could be, if it has north and southbound service and east and west service, that's duplicate service. So if they cut east-west service, your stop is still being served.
Thank you very much.
Leaves you in a lurch if you still want to go east and west.
We're going to note and file this document, but hope, and I know that MTA will keep us in the loop as far as ensuring when there are points of ability for us to have impact on that and to share with Maria, as you mentioned, Carolyn, to ensure that everyone has it.
You didn't want to report back from the department on the impacts?
I'm sorry, was that not, yes, report back. I'm sorry, I was looking at a different item. Yes,
Madam Chair,
report back,
sorry.
At the next meeting.
So are we note and filing the motion then?
We're actually keeping it in committee and reporting
continuing
back
committee then.
on, I think, our special meeting at 3:18, on 3:18 at 1 o'clock. Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much. Next item.
Did you want to go to the next MTA item?
And at Mr. Rosendall's office, I know Mr. Rosendahl wanted this item to go next.
Mr. Rosendahl,
Which one?
So let's do the last one first.
Well, no.
Or the next one, the Dodgers.
The
They got
next one.
spring training. They got to get ready for the new season.
Well, we'll go to item number 14.
Okay, 14 is a Reyes-Garcetti motion relative to directing DOT in consultation with Metro to report with recommendations on the feasibility of modifying existing bus routes or developing new bus routes to include service to and from Dodger Stadium.
With the understanding that Mr. Rosendahl comes back, because he did ask for that item, so please go ahead, and then we have number of speakers.
The department certainly is open to initiating new discussions with Metro and the Dodgers and any sponsors concerning
So
possibility.
we're going to put John hold, because Mr. Rosendahl had asked to hear his item next, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the Dodgers. We'll go to you next after this one, though. Mr. Rosendahl, we were going to go to the next item unless...
Tommy Lasorda says, if you're not on the field when you're ready to play, you can't play. That's what I say there, Madam Chair. I love Mr. Rosendahl. Oh.
Mr. Rosendahl just had no choice. I'm dealing with a very sensitive issue that
That's right.
life is what it is.
That's what it is. So item number 11.
Item number 11 is a DOT report in response to a Rosendahl Gruhl motion relative to assessing the feasibility of a congestion pricing system for LAX.
Good afternoon, Jay Kim from DOT. To summarize our report, I kind of want to clear the air. I think there has been some reports at KFWB that the department came out and said that this was a bad idea, or it was going to cause congestion around the airport. I don't think the report is really saying that. I think what we're trying to say is that the technology exists today that you would normally employ on the typical regular toll lane facilities you can utilize at LAX. However, the unique layout of the airport and also the unique nature of the users that come to the LAX airport are such that it does present unique challenges that if you were to try employing the typical conventional technical tools that you would normally employ on regular toll lanes. And so the report basically is saying that here's how it could work, but there are some unique challenges. And if you are going to make this a successful program, I think those issues have to be addressed. And that's really kind of the gist of what this report is really about. So I just wanted to sort of clear the air and kind of give it the proper sort of a context. And so just to kind of summarize, the way the typical toll lanes work is that you have a in-vehicle transponder, and that's detected by an overhead electronic or a pavement embedded system. And you could employ that same technology. And however, at the airport, one of the key things is that we are trying at the end of the day to remove congestion within the central terminal area. So the system has to be entirely non-intrusive in terms of detection, and the payment system has to be also automated. You cannot have your typical setup where you have a cashier booth or a coin catcher where people are fumbling for change or trying to take out their credit cards. We cannot afford that type of system. So the system has to be fully automated. But one of the challenges that's presented at the airport is that unlike having a facility next to the main line on the freeway or a completely separated toll lane facility, the users of LAX, generally for the most part, are not frequent users. I think most of us, unless we're frequent business flyers, we probably generally go to the airport a few times. And in fact, on a regular basis, you probably have new users to the facility. So certain people are going to always show up without having those in-vehicle transponders already placed in their vehicles, which means that it will necessitate additional technology to be able to detect these vehicles. And you also need to figure out, well, how do they pay then? Do they get out, and is there like a vending machine or a self-pay kind of a system where you have to drop money and take the ticket out? And if you have scofflaws and violators, how do you catch those guys? And so all these issues, again, the technology does exist. If people do not have in-vehicle transponders, you could capture them through license plate technology. In most toll facilities, again, this is facilitated by the fact that you have decent vehicle spacing, and you also have a controlled access point, entry point onto the facility. So if they don't have a automatic decal or a transponder, it's very easy to kind of capture their license plates. At the airport, the problem is the speeds are much lower. You have the bunching of vehicle effect. You also have very tall vehicles, quite a few shuttles, vans, and other tour bus type of vehicles that show up. And the camera angles that you would need to actually capture the license plates efficiently and accurately, we see that again as a challenge. Again, we're not saying that all these challenges cannot be overcome. We just think that it's important that if we are to consider doing something at the airport, that these issues really have to be addressed more fully, and we need to investigate other technological solutions to minimize these problems.
Thank you. And I appreciate what you've done so far, and I appreciate your clarification, because I understood that going in, but a lot of the media didn't understand it, and so we've been on interviews explaining this to people. Here's where I'd like to go with this. We're in the process of the master plan of LAX. For the first time since 1983, we're modernizing the airport. Part of that process is the Green Line, is the People Mover, is Consolidated Rental, the Bradley Terminal, and the Midfield Terminal. What I'd like to see happen now is a collaborative effort with MTA and DOT, study of the other MTA congestion pricing strategies, look at places like Melbourne, London, Singapore, and Stockholm, where they have congestion pricing at their airports already going. And what would be great is if you could have some initial discussions with LAWA and the master plan people there and the MTA, and see how in a coordinated effort as we go forward with the master plan activities that we have in place at the right time a congestion pricing strategy. Number one, I don't want to put it in place until we have the public transportation leg completed. I don't want to penalize people who will take public transportation. Secondly, I want to make sure it legitimately ties in to the overall MTA strategy on congestion pricing. Three, as we do the modernization of LAX, those costs, by the way, will be passed on to the airlines, which LAX is now $7 to land, $20 in Miami, $12 in Ontario. And I dare say American Airlines, United Airlines don't care how long it takes you to get to the gate at LAX. We do on the ground. And once those modernizations takes place, these big airlines will begin to have nonstop direct, frequent, and discounted flights out of Ontario. We have to get into regionalism on both the ground and obviously in the air. So this is just the first step, your initial study. But I'd like you to go back and I'd like you to look at some of these other places on the planet and how they did their congestion pricing around airports. And two, I'd like you to meet with the MTA and get their blessing, support, and concept about congestion pricing. And three, get with the master plan people at LAWA. We'll set that up with Gina Marie Lindsay and her people, so you can get in on the ground floor of this modernization project at the airport, and if it works, we tie in this project as an opportunity for us all to work on. Maybe 2 years from now or 3 years from now, we can actually start implementing these things. But it has to be a work in progress.
Yes, and I think it's very consistent with our recommendation, which points to the fact that that opportunity does exist. We can kind of continue the dialogue and continue to explore additional technology solutions that would address all the issues that we've sort of
Excellent.
brought
And
forward.
when do you think you could give us a report back on all this cooperation, collaboration, and coordination, and all that?
It probably would take some time to coordinate with all different parties and
Would you
do
like
additional,
60
maybe
days, 90 days?
maybe 6 months. Is that too far out?
Yeah, I'd like an interim report in 3 months then.
Okay, we can give you a status report in 3 months.
Status
and try to
report
come
in
back
3
with a more full report in 6 months.
Thank you.
He's much nicer. I had 30 days, but I think
Oh,
90
okay.
days is probably more
Yeah,
realistic.
because we really want to do it right, and we want to tie everything in.
Okay.
Yeah. And thank you, Mr. Rosendahl, for your leadership on this, because, again, I think what the department did was look at, what are some of the hurdles, but that if we hadn't even asked, it wouldn't be part of any discussion going forward. And so that's very, very important.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes.
Yeah, comment. Philosophically, I don't believe in congestion pricing. I understand that. So if I should vote, though, for the study, just to lay out the facts, but eventually, we will come back where we have to make a tough decision whether they have, you would see that people who don't live in Los Angeles County pay a higher rate?
What I would see is this: if there's mass transit hooks, the Green Line, buses, other light rail
Right.
strategies, bus flying zone buses and all that kind of stuff, then individual cars could be subject to some kind of a congestion pricing strategy.
Individual cars that would separate people from Los Angeles County and Ventura County?
I don't know. I'm nowhere near any decision on who would get hit, who wouldn't get hit, how they would get hit.
Right.
It's irrelevant to me right now. What's important is to see if it could fit within the concept of modernization of that airport, so that the people mover and the Green Line are moving, and that congestion pricing is another potential strategies that would assist us in the gridlock 405.
But there's a gridlock 405, but with the gridlock 405, okay, I got that. All right, so, but philosophically, I don't believe in congestion. I believe we all are citizens of the United States, we all pay what taxes and fees, and I don't think little towns or big towns should have extra fees just to be able to go through them. That's my feeling. I had to express that. I love you, though, just the same. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Sachs.
Thank you.
And then,
Left over?
yes.
Love it. Thank you. Arnold Sachs again. Regarding the automated people mover, I brought this up once before. Anything to the studying about including the people mover going for rental car agencies, but shuttle services and taxi stands outside the airport?
It's all part of the modernization discussion at LAX.
Oh, we know what does that mean?
It means that LAX is looking at all of those various options available to them when they come in the modernization. Is that correct, Mr.?
Correct.
Yeah. So,
No, I was just curious.
Just no expansion of LAX, otherwise the lawsuits will be in again
Well-
and everything will stop.
Just quickly, to bring that up very quickly, in the article yesterday, I believe, about the taxiway lights,
Yes, sir.
they mentioned the fact that LAX is very similar to Dallas-Fort Worth, which has the airline, the lights. So my question would be, what has Dallas-Fort Worth done to alleviate its problem? I know it's a much newer airport. A, and B, I just forgot what I was going to say, I'm sorry.
okay.
Oh, is the A380 going to land at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport? And if it does, what are they doing to alleviate their problems there? Because if it's a similar layout, then something should be able to be learned from a similar layout. And yet LAX seems to be on an island unto itself. Well, we don't know what we're doing because we got guys going this
I
way.
got to tell you, we have a great leader. The mayor was brilliant in picking Gina Marie Lindsay, who is the airport executive, and she's on top of this, and it's going fantastically well.
We're just talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, on that item, we'll ask for a 90-day report back. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Item 14,
Hey, Billy, you know, I just talked to...
back again.
You sure this time?
I'm positive this time. Jim, you must be enjoying your job. You have a good,
I certainly
humor.
do. Jim Lefton with the Department of Transportation. We certainly would be happy to report back to this committee on issues associated with running transit service to Dodger Stadium. Just in terms of some background, the Dodgers did fund the private shuttle from Union Station to Dodger Stadium in 2004. That service was discontinued after 1 year due to low ridership. And if you recall, the department did provide a special bus lane on Sunset Boulevard, Chavez rather, to facilitate expedited travel to Dodger Stadium. The Metro did also prepare a report in August 2006 to the Metro Board on this issue and indicated that the Dodgers were apparently unwilling to fund transit service, additional transit service, at least at that time. So anyway, we can give you an update of what discussions have taken place and what the potential costs might be to run service to Dodger Stadium and give you some additional background on this issue.
So, but the questions, I know, and I know we have represented from the Dodgers today, is they wanted to do this on in 2008, by opening day of 2008, which is
Take me home
30
to
days.
the ball
30 days.
game.
30 days. So, and I see in the, that you've had some of these meetings, but what is the ability to do this in that 30-day period of time? What steps are you taking to potentially make that happen?
Well, there are a number of potential options. One option, as I mentioned before, the Dodgers could certainly contract with a private company. They contracted in 2004 with a company called Transit Systems to run the service, and they contracted directly for that service. That's one potential option. I think it ran for every Friday night home game. There was discussion in the motion about the possibility of Metro modifying one of its existing routes to go to Dodger Stadium. We can certainly initiate discussions with Metro.
The 96, it goes on Riverside Drive, but run it up, or the 2.
That would be a potential option. I'm not sure about the time
And
frame.
have they been part of your discussions when you've been meeting with this at all? I mean, on this motion? Have the MTA been part of those discussions?
We have not initiated any discussions subsequent to the motion. Like I said, there was action taken by the Metro staff to report to the board in 2006. So, as far as I know, there were some meetings immediately after that report went to the Metro board, but I don't think that those discussions have continued since the fact that there appeared to be no interest from private sponsorship to fund a new transit service. I think that's where the discussions died.
And Art or Carolyn, are you aware of an ability to make that move? I mean, has there been some discussions internally?
As Jim Lupton has indicated, Metro had been approached in the past to study this. We do not have the funding for this line, and the option of taking service off of Sunset Boulevard, which is Line 2, which is a very heavily traveled line in our system, and divert it up to Dodger Stadium isn't an option that we can consider because we don't have the funding or the ability right now to reroute that within the parameters that we have.
Did you look at the budget for what the rerouting would cost?
No, we haven't been approached about looking at that. The issue for us is not so much it is the funding, and then also it's the ability to get, in our cases, 60-foot, 45-foot buses up that area, which is very difficult.
Steep up that hill.
Because it's basically what we're running on. We're running high-capacity buses on Sunset Boulevard. And so to reroute them up through, those narrow areas up in that geographic area would be very difficult.
And, but you're willing to, the motion actually asks the department and Dodger Stadium and DOT and MTA to get together to come on with recommendations. So MTA is willing to sit down and be part of that discussion?
We're definitely willing to be part of the discussion.
Okay.
We just want to let you know that we have some physical and funding parameters to do so.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Anything else before we hear from the our public speakers.
Are we going to say anything?
Yeah, do you want to ask any?
No, I just want to ask a question there. You know, the two bus originated at Hill Street, I think, like 11th and Hill?
The two?
The two on Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
And then the 96. I'm sorry, Kellen, I'm not like...
Yeah, I can't tell you specifically.
I know.
Yeah,
I
where
don't want you to think I'm
the
like Rain.
origin-
I'm not Rain Man, you know, who knows that there, but I just remember these
I know you're
numbers.
smart, though.
Okay, so...
Was not.
I was not.
Hill and Venice,
No.
you're correct.
So, I'm just thinking there's opportunity here, even though I know this goes back to the school tripper thing, but I think what I'm so proud of, even though it's a contract, because it's a missed opportunity by the MTA because of the advocacy that was against you to put a subway up Highland to the Hollywood Bowl, but there's nothing like public transit to a public venue. And so if we could get some consistency of service, and I think there's nothing like the MTA and those large articulated buses, and maybe we cone off, you know, I don't know if we would be even, you know, if you went up College, let's just say you went College, you know, went from Union Station to College, you get the Blue Line connection, we cone off College, and you come up the back way in a bus-only lane, right past the Fire Academy, and you sweep right in there, and you get in there, and everybody says, hey, MTA, you know, so I just hope we could figure this out, and you take the two, then you unload it there, right there, and I'm sure the Dodgers, because I think it was interesting, everybody was upset with the new parking plan, but after they said, give us some time, it did work, if I remember correctly, that it did work and adjusted. They could figure a drop-off point and loop off. I remember when can I?
You can do whatever you want, Tommy.
Bill, how many baseball games you been to, Bill?
I've been to two.
Two, okay, all right. I didn't want to, you know, lay you out on that there, but I've been to probably 1,222.
This guy about my-
That's okay. I know. You may have more concerts at the Hollywood Bowl than I, but I have more baseball games there. But I
I'm a
wouldn't.
cable guy. I
You
used to
came
be
on.
be in the suite, but now
Got
I'm
it.
elected, no backsheesh.
Oh, well, yeah, I know, but I got a 9-year-old son, and he plays for the Toluca Lake team, and we get him up. Long story short, I remember when the outfield was lined with 177s. Now I'm really Rain Man there. That was the special bus that came up that the MTA predecessor, RTD, used to do. So I think there's a way if there's a will. And there's also an important part of looking to be a partner in this. There's 82 games a year, and I don't think they're talking about this Monday through Friday. I think they're talking about it on big days all the time. It's important to look at this aspect of it. And I think what they could do, and I don't know, I see Ms.
I know,
Peters from
Betty
Echo
Hicks
Park who are here.
open up to
You're going to jump on a meeting, but even they work closely with the Dodgers. Maybe there's an access point in up off of College that gets them in, and maybe, don't bark at me, you go out Scott to get back to Sunset. You know, maybe there's a trade-off on that.
And
Okay.
besides the challenges of, you know, as I indicated, the funding challenges, the physical challenges, but also we still get into the issue of not entering charter waters, because if you're operating service and you divert your service, then you have to put it on the frequency that you would do for any other line. And basically, if we're dropping off service and it's for the beginning of a game, and then there's no ridership in between, we would be running totally unproductive service.
I got it.
Okay. So I just want to let you know what the parameters are.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to ask Howard Sunken, Suzanne Jimenez from Councilmember Reyes' office, Damien Noten, and Kabira Stokes.
What the council office?
Yes, you may. Thank you. Great,
Hello,
thanks.
thank you, council members, for taking time to hear this item. I'm Suzanne Jimenez. I'm here representing Councilman Reyes. And we just wanted to emphasize that, yes, this is asking for public transportation to Dodger Stadium, but it is also asking for public transportation to Elysian Park and to the Los Angeles Historic Park, which is very important because these are two large parks that do not have public transportation accessibility. So that is a major part of the motion as well. Public transportation in this area will improve the quality of life of the neighborhoods and the communities surrounding Dodger Stadium and Elysian Park. And we just feel it's a very important, either an extension of a route or a new route in the area. We think it's very important so that we can start, I guess, well, it's an environmentally friendly policy in the area, and I know the community would support this.
Great. And we'll let the other council members, you didn't forget all of your training previously, Mr. Sunken.
I'm Kabira Stokes-Hochberg, representing Council President Garcetti, and 1.3 million cars come in and out of that stadium every year, and most of them are through Council District 13, also obviously Council District 1. This is a quality of life issue for our neighbors. We're here representing the council members, but we're also representing the constituents of our districts, and the time has come. We recently had to work with the Dodgers to open the Scott Gate. The community is not pleased about this, and it just seems that as more and more cars go in and out, we really need to start thinking about public transportation into that stadium. We're one of the only major cities in America that doesn't have public transportation to their baseball stadium. This is the future. The time has come to figure this out, and I think Council President Garcetti would echo what Councilmember Labange said, which is if there is a way, if there is a will. So I think the will of the council offices and of the community is clear, and the time has come environmentally, quality of life-wise, and we definitely support a pilot project if it's just a year, but let's do it.
Madam Chair, I was just going to say, I was thinking of trying to get Angel's Flight back in service and moving it up there, but didn't have the right name.
Maybe we can put it in Anaheim and call it Los Angeles,
Mr. Sunken?
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl and members. It's always nice to be back here amongst friends. I think a bigger deal is being made out of this than really needs to be. This is very, very simple. This is about taking the 2 line off of Sunset through the Scott Gate into the stadium. The Dodgers will create a transit center for drop-offs. We'll loop it out and go right back to Sunset. This is a route that was in existence from 1963 to 94. For economic reasons, they decided not to do it. I appreciate what Kabir says. We are the only stadium in America that does not have public transit. We are also the most attended stadium in America outside of Yankee Stadium. More fans have come to Dodger Stadium than any other sports venue in the world in the last 20 years, and we've done this without public transportation. I appreciate what Mr. Labange said about us fixing the parking system. We did that in concert with our 2 council offices in the community. And yes, opening the Scott Gate was not popular, but it was a decision that had to be made for our fans, and for all intent purposes was worked reasonably efficiently and probably exceeded expectations, and I'll let the community speak to that. They're here. But one of the things they said during those hearings, if you open the Scott Gate, let's use it for dedicated public transit for ingress and egress. We have 2,500 union employees that come to the stadium every day when we have baseball games, concerts, other special events. No public transit. Quite frankly, it's almost embarrassing. And I don't mean to ridicule anybody or be suggestive in nature, but it is embarrassing that a city like, I learned that from you, Rosendahl. It's embarrassing for a city so important like Los Angeles that we don't have public transit to Dodger Stadium. We want to get this implemented. It is the future. It is crucial. And we're going to have 4 million fans come to the stadium this year. And it's time. And I appreciate Kabir's comments.
Great. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I've been coming to these meetings for 4 months, and
Yes.
I put a moratorium on myself. I wasn't going to speak for 4 months till I knew the layout better, but now you're going to have to get used to it.
See ya frequently. Good.
Yeah. In 2006, first off, the Dodgers aren't the only team not to have transit to their stadium. I believe they're the only baseball team that's name actually comes from a transit mode. They were the Brooklyn Trolley Dodgers at first, and they were.
You want to join our PR department?
In 2006, the New York Mets lost half of their parking lots for a couple seasons because they were doing renovations and building a new stadium. And what they did to make that up was they built a whole PR campaign around transit. They take the train to the game. You can see some of the videos on YouTube. They did public service announcements. They ran them during the games. Their announcers talked about them, things on the Jumbotron in the stadium. And I bring this up because just adding a bus line after ones have failed before probably won't have really different results unless it's really advertised to the, and it's easy, you have a captive audience. Everyone that's a potential rider of the bus line to Dodger Stadium is going to be in the stadium at some point. And really, for it to really succeed, I think the way to go is to work with the team to really promote it properly. When we my wife and I tried to take mass transit to a Lakers game, and we went to the Lakers website instead of the Staples Center site. There were no transit directions. When we got there, we saw, oh, look, there's a train line, 2 blocks away. Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, no transit directions on their website. I mean, it starts with the basic things. Put the transit directions on the website and promote them. And promote them in the stadium, promote them during the broadcasts on radio and TV. And I think that you'll see those buses that were empty in 2004 will start filling up a little bit, because it's part of the experience. If you can sit in the bus with a lot of other hardcore fans, it's fun.
I've been on the subway with all the Laker fans, and it's
Yeah.
pretty exciting on a day of a game, so it's great. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask our next 4 speakers. Veronica Perez-Becker.
Could we leave
Yes.
Howard up there like
Yes,
that?
Howard can stay.
Questions?
Veronica, Steve Zimmer, and Marianne Hayashi.
Good afternoon. I'm Veronica Perez-Becker from the Central City Association. CCA represents over 450 businesses, trade associations, and nonprofits employing over 350,000 people in the Los Angeles area, and we are proud to say that many of them are avid Dodger fans. As mobility is a key element to the success of Los Angeles, it is our strong belief that in order to continue making our city a true 24/7 destination, all of its world-class entertainment venues must be easily accessible via public transportation. One of our core principles is to support transit-oriented development and the creation of pedestrian-friendly communities. While there once was bus service to the stadium, it was suddenly and inexplicably halted. With that in mind, our members are concerned that there currently is not a viable public transportation option to attend a game at Dodger Stadium. Without such a service, our vibrant neighborhoods surrounding the stadium cannot truly be given a proper forum to showcase themselves to a more diverse clientele. And it's no surprise that during especially heavily attended games, without this public transportation component, traffic regularly backs up further and further on Sunset Boulevard, Echo Park Avenue, Alvarado Street, and Glendale Boulevard, which subsequently causes the surrounding residential streets in and around Elysian Park to be inundated with residual traffic, diminishing their quality of life. In order for our city to fully benefit from all of its marketing, professional, and financial opportunities, a thriving transportation hub must exist that includes public transportation service to and from Dodger Stadium, and we hope that you support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve.
Yes, hi, Steve Zimmer. Today I'm here representing Elysian Valley United. During the day, I'm a teacher and counselor at Marshall High School, and just want to note at the beginning, we're not going to lose, we won't lose the 175. We've got a meeting set up, I believe it's going to be Tuesday, and we're finally getting the district in. So that's a crucial issue. I'm here today. I volunteer every day after school at a community center in Elysian Valley, which is literally in the shadows of Dodger Stadium and Elysian Park. And we've been advocating, it's one of the primary things we advocate for is public transportation access to Elysian Park and Dodger Stadium. Because the folks who, we have over 50% of our community is completely or partially transit dependent. And it's important to remember, a lot of our families are, when we talk about transit dependency, we're not only talking about completely transit dependent families, because you can have one car in a family, and then you still have 4 or 5 or 6 members of that family who are completely transit dependent. So our neighborhood is over 50% transit dependent. Our kids live in the shadows of Dodger Stadium. Their heroes play on the field. They can almost hear the crowds, but they've never been. And the reasons that they never go, unless Mr. Stunkin's been good enough to get our organization tickets, the reason that they can't go with their whole family is not because they can't afford it. Going to a Dodger game is cheaper than going to the movies. It's just that they can't get there. And it's an equity issue. It's an access issue.
No sidewalks on Stadium Way.
They deal with all of the congestion, all of having to walk to and from, if they go to an after-school program, crossing the street with all this traffic, but they never get to go. And that's really what this is about. You can live around the community. You can be proud to be a Dodger fan, but you don't get to go. And if we can do this and make it happen, it's going to include folks that have been excluded for far too long.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for being here today and what you're doing in the volunteering as well. Marianne?
Good afternoon. My name is Marianne Hayashi. I'm the Executive Director of Central City Action Committee. It's a youth center in the Echo Park area. Also receive funds from Council District 1 and 13 for graffiti removal. I also live since 1949 in Chinatown, and I'm involved with the activities in Chinatown. I'm on the Alpine Recreation Board, Alpine Center Recreation Board. I'm co-founder of a neighborhood group on Alpine and Sunset, member of the Los Angeles Dodgers Community Advisory Board. And all the communities I'm representing here today, the major concern is public access to the Dodger Stadium. They can go to the convention center, we can go to the Forum, we can go all kinds of places, but our community doesn't have, and the effect that it has, by not having public transportation, the effect it has on all our surrounding communities. Now, it's real interesting. In the 60s, there was a seasonal bus. I think it was bus number 635.
635.
See, I've been around a long
It
time.
used to be the 177 before that.
I'm older than you, Councilman.
I know, but I went to Marshall.
Anyway, this bus, it came up Sunset. It had access from downtown. It went right into the Dodger Stadium. It looped around the Dodger Stadium and left people off. And then at the end of the game, people were able to board the buses. Now, I personally rode these buses. Now, how they got them up there at that time, and they were, I think it was RTD at the time, and they just went up Sunset, they went up Stadium Way and into and they looped around. And it's not that long of a trip. And unfortunately, they said they cut them because of budget constraints and low ridership. And I question the low ridership because my husband and I, we used to take our kids and we used to ride up, but we never rode back because the lines and the buses were so packed that we just walked down to Grand Avenue in Hill Place where we live. So I really question that. And at that time, there was never any community hearing on
moving it,
who's going to do this. So I really, hope that you give us our support. The community deserves it, and we really need it. Thank you.
I think you have our support. So I think, without hearing all the speakers, I think you've heard that from all of us. So thank you very much, Christine Peters, Eric Richardson, and George Yu. Christine, nice to see you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Christine Peters, here representing the Greater Echo Park Elysian Neighborhood Council, and also I'm the president of the Citizens Committee to Save Elysian Park. I've submitted a letter that our neighborhood council submitted to the Metropolitan Transportation Authority in June of 2007, shortly after the Dodgers put together a public transit task force at the request of Council President Eric Garcetti after the opening of the Scott Gate and a lot of community input on how can we improve traffic movement around our community. I've been a member of that task force, and one of the first things that we did was ask to immediately solve the problem by bringing public transit into the stadium. Aside from that, we need public transit into the Elysian Park area. Elysian Park is the second largest park in Los Angeles, just under 600 acres. There is absolutely no way to get to Elysian Park via public transportation, therefore denying all of the members of the underprivileged part of Los Angeles into enjoying a park experience unless they have access to a vehicle, which is something that Mr. Zimmer mentioned. So for us, it's critical not only to have a seasonal solution to the Dodger Stadium transportation problem, but also look into providing transportation to one of our most historically rich parks in the city of Los Angeles. Elysian Park is an amazing place to be any time of the year, not just during the baseball season. So we really want to emphasize getting some type of either Dash or MTA service through the park, coming from Riverside Drive, going through Elysian Valley, and coming through on the other side to Sunset. We already have a bus that serves the Riverside Drive area in Alessandro. We have a bus that serves Sunset. We have nothing that gets us from point A to point B, and it would really bring a hugely underserved part of the population into the park. Also, as far as the Dodger traffic goes, attendance has increased tremendously, and the neighborhood is feeling the burden. We are suffering tremendously from backups in traffic, and if we can encourage more of the public to use public transportation and come up with other solutions in the future, it will be tremendously helpful to our community.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Eric, and then George?
Yeah. Eric Richardson. I'm a downtown resident and the chair of the Downtown Neighborhood Council's Transportation Committee, but not speaking for the Neighborhood Council today. I also run a website called Blog Downtown, and this past May, we put together a picnic, and we held it up at Elysian Park. And it was a great time, and Councilwoman Perry actually came out as well. But one of the things that we encountered was when we were talking about the event and trying to hype it up, people would say, well, you know, how can I get there without driving? And there wasn't a way. And so I think that access to the stadium is great, but I think that just as important out of this motion is developing transit into Elysian Park and really helping to make a park that is utilized and that doesn't suffer from the same sort of neglect that large portions of it do today. It's a great facility, and it's right next to downtown, and we just need to make the most of it.
Got to ask a question. I know where home plate is. I know where the batter's box is. I know where the on-deck circle is. Where are the bike racks at Dodger Stadium?
Let's have
that was a curveball I threw at Howard Sunken there, and he's
Top of the park, Mr. Labange.
You got to have some up there. Good. Okay, good. Because we could have a bike night. We could ride from downtown, ride from Silver Lake, neighborhood bike ride on a weekday.
Why don't you lead it?
I will. Okay, good.
George, as long as you stay on the concrete.
I will always, never on the dirt. You know that history. We'll do that. Thank you, Howard.
Good afternoon. My name is George Yu. I'm the Executive Director of the Chinatown Business Improvement District. Our community appreciates the business brought by the traffic in our proximity to Dodger Stadium. To see all the eateries, bars, merchants busy before and after games makes us very happy. As with all relationships, there are areas for improvement. The gridlock traffic, as everybody has noted, can be maddening. In 2004, we partnered with the Dodgers in operating the shuttle from the Chinatown Gold Line Station. The Gold Line Station to my seat in 15 minutes, and just be able to stay until the end of the game, and back to the Gold Line Station in 15 minutes. We must have a mass transit option in the days of $3.50 or $4, soon to be $4 gas. Now's the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The last speaker is Mr. Sachs, and then we'll ask some questions.
Thanks. I think he loves City Hall. He loves Bernard, too, on MTA Day.
Great. Good afternoon. Very quickly, whichever way you're going to go with this, please, would you contact the Dodgers and make sure that they, prior to the opening game, release a parking plan and an access plan for cars for the stadium so that you can alleviate the problems that were caused last year, and also make sure that they have adequate personnel on hand, and in addition, maybe adequate parking DOT personnel on hand to assist in the traffic that was horrendous for last year's opening game. I don't know which way they're going to go with this mass transit. It's overdue by 15 years.
At least. Thank you.
Oh, one other thing. You're talking mass transit, Dodger Stadium, and I'm having a brain cramp because I cannot remember the name of the stadium, but they should do something about mass transit for the stadium at Cal State Dominguez Hills, where the Galaxy play. It would be nice to have extended mass transit to there too. I mean, MTA service at least, and extend the hours for whenever the facilities are in use, so that public can
All right.
use affordable
We're just directly on the
transportation.
Dodger Stadium today. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Sunken, I think you heard from all of us that we do want to make this happen, and I think that
Great,
both
thank you.
MTA and DOT heard that as well, and from both of our council members and the community, it looks like everyone is in agreement. And so what I'd like to do, colleagues, I think we all are in agreement, is ask them, the department, MTA, Dodgers, and the community to meet, which I know some of that has already happened, but with the sense of urgency that I know everyone has prior to the opening to see this happen in one way or another. So I think we'd like to instruct them to come back either the next meeting if we can do that or within the 30 days. Yes, Mr.
I totally agree. We all agree. I mean, it's obvious, I've been to 10,000 games here. Tommy's just pulling our leg here a little bit. No, that's true. We know the truth. But the bottom line is this. What we like, especially as Ms. Gruhl articulated it, you sit down with those people and map out what makes the most sense. Because I can tell you on the west side, I can see literally thousands of fans getting in buses, making it an outing, a joy, get on the bus, have some cheers and some singing, get there, have a good time, get back in the bus. People would love...
If they win, they'll be happy. You got to win!
Bottom line is, you should help us figure out what is the best strategy in going forward with it. But totally, it's a no-brainer. I can't believe we don't have public transportation to the...
Thank you. Have the assurances of the Dodgers, our owners, that whatever resources we can put at it, we have those resources available. One quick thing I do want to say, if I may. The issue of not being able to bring a bus into Dodger Stadium is, I don't think, terribly realistic. About 250 large coaches come to each and every baseball game at Dodger Stadium. So I think many of those issues, while they may be valid, can be alleviated if we can sit down, have a discussion with the idea of getting it done, not with something I tell my 7-year-old, what part of no don't you understand?
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So
Give us a breakdown how the Dodgers going to do this year. What is
Be terrific, Tom. They're going to be absolutely terrific.
Hey, also on the Dash, I know you have a Dash contractor in Lincoln Heights. Do you have any big coaches there at the Dash on Lincoln Heights? They're all little small buses there, Phil? All right.
Item number 12.
Item number 12 is a Grove Parks motion relative to directing DOT in coordination with BOE and other appropriate bureaus within DPW to review and report on the National Surface Transportation Policy and Revenue Commission's January 15th final report.
My name is Michael Leno. I'm with the Department of Transportation. I have no report. I'm here to listen to what you want us to look at in particular.
Okay. Well, as colleagues, you may know, this committee was established based on safety, Lou, and a report back on the fact that we're seeing our gas tax, that, the two shall never meet on our ability to be able to fund the existing programs in all of our streets and roads across the country. So what we're really interested is, we, I think, would like to provide comments on a joint response letter to the commission. And do we have ways in which to respond specifically to the final recommendations? So I think they released their report on January 15th. And according to Metro, the region's transportation agencies have agreed to submit a joint letter in response to the commission's report. So we're interested in...
And MTA just reported earlier today, they did not send out that letter yet, so they are still working with the other commissions in the area to put together some kind of letter, so we'll need to coordinate with them.
Okay, so, and what role can the city play to...
We'll coordinate with MTA, find out if and how they want us to coordinate, or, what kind of issues the department raises based on the recommendations and what's in the report.
So I think it's important, and we're going back to the National League of Cities meeting in a week and a half, I serve on the Transportation Committee there, and I know that one of the issues that they followed very closely, and in fact attended all the hearings, and they co-sponsored one particularly, is the interest of making sure our voices are heard as that goes to Congress. So I just want to make sure you're part of that, on it.
Okay.
Okay. But it would be, I don't know if there's if we know if we're going to send something, or they're going to look at, even looking at the draft between now and the time I go to the National League of Cities and my colleagues that are there, so we can kind of, see what how everyone else is responding across the country. That was easy, wasn't that? Relatively. Next item.
Item 15 is a Labange Grove motion relative to the establishment of a Citizens Freeway Advocacy Task Force that, in conjunction with Caltrans, would develop transportation improvement projects along the city's freeways and related matters.
Madam Chair, I just want to say I have a great idea finally, Maria. I think that you would accept. That makes sense here. Remember when you first arrived in City Hall, Madam Chair?
When I did?
Yeah, we were doing the 101 task force. And maybe we could suggest it, because there is some governance challenge here. Is that correct, Madam Scalay?
Yes.
But what if we had a working group like we had on the 101, which we wrote a letter, Madam Chair, to each of the 15 council members, 14, and said, please appoint someone to a freeway advisory group. We're going to have a meeting with Caltrans officials, LADOT officials, MTA officials, and we're going to look at the freeway system to suggest, because I talked to Ms. Hahn, and she knows that if you go down the 110 freeway, when you get to the 405, the freeway goes from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, and it just chokes there. That should be corrected. I know when you go north on the 5, if outside our city, but still, we could talk about any of the freeway system in Southern California, it chokes at Alameda, which backs up all the way to Los Feliz, which is like 5.5 miles sometimes. I know when you come down the Hollywood Freeway,
Say 101, 110.
yeah, all those places. So the governance is not a governance. The operation would be an advisory group that they would meet once a year to discuss this so that we articulate Los Angeles's position on freeway improvement. Mr. Rosendahl spoke earlier about the San Diego Freeway, and it's going to be another 2 years before they finish between the 10 and the 90 freeway. Yet maybe traffic is so bad, maybe we should push that a little bit more. Whatever the case may be, I think Harry Paul, the very special engineer for the Department of Transportation, I know, very good job. He recalled this working group of that issue, so maybe that solves it. So all I would suggest is that maybe we continue this on 30 days and look in that aspect. It would be a working group with the city council, their appointed deputies, just to advise and ask that they consult the neighborhood councils in the area so there's some transparency, because people always get freaked out. These things aren't going to happen next year, next several years, but let's not stop talking about tomorrow.
All right, so we'll do that within 30 days.
Yeah, good. Is that good, Maria? What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that a good idea?
Fabulous.
Harry Paul, you did it, man.
So our last part is a public speaker, Francisca. Thank you.
This is a great lady.
Hello. I'll be short. I just wanted to thank you for bringing up the wheelchair bus only lanes for the second week in March, I think, and wanted to just say a couple bullet points, I guess, that I think some of our outline concerns as well. One is the big thing is, I think one of the big requests to LA should be for them to be transparent in what the timeline is going to be. I think there's been a lot of confusion around what might be some of the obstacles or hurdles that we have to go through for this to happen. I think there's been confusion from when the money is going to be received, to when implementation is going to happen, to even what potential processes might have to happen, or even studies that have to happen before this can move forward. And I think that's our biggest request right now. If we can have real clarity from LA on one, what is the timeline, and two, what are those obstacles that we have to kind of overcome in the process. That's
Wonderful, and thank you. And I know Mr. Rosendahl particularly asked for us to have that in this meeting. When we realized that this was kind of congestion pricing day, we said with the next meeting we would have that scheduled with that information as well.
Great.
So we want to ensure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Okay. With that, this meeting is adjourned.